All right, hypothesis testing. For all the work that we'll do, any work that you do for my course, anytime you do a hypothesis test, there are going to be five, count them, five steps. This is what Dr. Beersman made us do when I was an undergraduate. This is what I've made students do ever since then. These are the 5 steps to I don't care what the textbook has. I don't care what the Wolfram Algebra has. I don't care what the other structures have. You go to a different course, a different university, they might have a different structure. But for this course, everything we are going to be doing, 5 steps. And you will write number 1, and then you will do step number 1, and then you'll write number 2 and put a circle around. Then you do step number 2, then you write number 3, and you do step number 3. You will go through this procedure like it's the one true faith. Every time you will do these 5 steps for hypothesis testing. All right, so we'll go through. I'm going to state each of these, and then we'll talk about each of them in particular. So number 1, state hypotheses. A popular thing these days among common parlance is this phrase, moving the goalpost. People want to establish something, or they make a contention, and this is very often done in casual parlance. The sad thing is it's also done in more official realms, but it's called moving the goalpost. They'll say that this is what I'm trying to establish, and they're not successful in that, and so then what they do is they'll change the subject slightly, and then they'll say, now this is what I'm arguing for. That's called moving the goalpost. Reputable hypothesis testing does not do that. You write down at the very start what it is you're looking for, what the criteria are, what the numbers need to be. You write it down at the very start, and so nobody gets to change it afterwards. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Reputable work means everything is written down before you start, and the first thing you state is the hypothesis you're trying to establish. You write it down, and then you don't get to change it later on. You don't get to go halfway through and find out it's not going to work, and then go back and change it. That's not the way it works. So, number 1 is you state the hypotheses. Again, as we've talked about a little bit before, well, I'm going to write these 5 out, and then we'll consider each of them in turn. The second is determine alpha. Alpha in this context means the same thing as it meant when we talked about alpha in the confidence intervals, but we'll come back and talk about this in more detail soon. Determine alpha. Number 3 is gather data and compute test statistic. Gather the data and compute the test statistic. All right? More on that pretty soon. Number 4, compute something called the p-value. Now, depending upon where you go and what course you take later on, step 4 can be done one of 2 ways. One of them is the p-value approach. The other is the rejection region. Either compute p-value or compute rejection region. There's the p-value approach. There's what's called the rejection region approach. For us, this semester, in part because of all the hullabaloo, but we will not consider the rejection region. We will take the p-value approach. It is more widespread and becoming more common, and so we will do unapologetically. We're going to do the p-value approach, compute p-value, and the number 5 is the decision. All right. So those are the 5 steps. So you will do step number 1, write it down. Then you write 2, put a circle around it. Then you do step 2. Then 3, put a circle around it. Part of the problem is this. In particular, steps 3 and 4, it's very computation intensive. What happens is you go through all this, you compute, and you get a number, and then you think, well, where am I now? What am I supposed, oh, you can look back, oh, that was number 3, now I'm number 4, and you're back on track again. So, using this structure will assist you in making sure you do things smoothly, correctly, and in the right sequence.